I'm about as real as they come.
All my beats tailored by Joe. House Digital.
Maserati, Rick in Detroit. Convertible bird in Miami. Graduated summa cum laude. Strip club made a tsunami. Carlton Hines with the ball game. Grateful Edmonds with the snowflakes. Craig Pettis in the M-Town. Sal Magluta with the boat game. Falcone with the cocaine. Like Freeway Ricky with the plug game. Like Monster Cody in South Central. Larry Davis from close range.
It's as if the White House and the Capitol were positioned on the streets of the Old West. These dots are where the fatal gunfights took place in the last year, most of them related to the sale of drugs. Unlike Dodge City, many of them involved only a single gun in the hands of an assassin, often a drug merchant trying to claim territory. It's gotten so worrisome that some of the district's daily workers have been complaining to the country.
Mr. Speaker, the state of affairs in our nation's capital city is a national disgrace. It's an international embarrassment and dishonors the name of the first President, George Washington.
Even the district's best-known resident has expressed exasperation.
Certainly in Washington, we have a responsibility. It's a federal city, and a lot of the funds obviously come from the federal government. But there isn't any easy answer to that.
92 people have been murdered in Washington since the first of the year. That's 38 more than the same time a year ago. A year in which murderers killed 372 people, the all-time high. Washington is now the murder capital of America, and possibly the drug capital too. The district has about 625,000 residents. Every year, it arrests about 21 drug suspects for every 1,000 residents. In New York, the number is only 12 per 1,000. In Los Angeles, it is 10 per 1,000. Many suspects are from Washington's black school-age population.
Worst murders out over the years, but tonight Sean Branch is headed to prison. Jen Fox has more on the 3-year-old charges that finally stuck to a man dubbed the Teflon Killer. Teflon Sean, they nicknamed the diminutive Sean Branch, until the day the 23-year-old Northeast man beat 8 out of 10 charges against him. Today, he got 26 years for the murder of Michael Green. Never to see him in the street again would have. Prosecutor Karen Liu called Branch a killer who belongs with other killers, not on the street to kill again. She asked for the maximum. This is clearly a deliberate killing. It's a killing that by his own words, he said he wanted to do. I'm here to bust somebody, he said when he went out on the street.
The National Guard will be out on the streets of D.C. this morning. They're joining residents and police in an attempt to cut down on crime. Our Ron Talley is live at police headquarters with the latest. Good morning, Ron.
Good morning, Daria. If anyone thought that this latest crackdown on crime by Chief Larry Soulsby was short-lived, they can think again. It continues en masse. 15 more arrests yesterday in one raid alone. 2 weeks ago, Chief Soulsby promised to move his desk officers onto the streets, and now he's struck a deal to get neighborhood street patrols help from the National Guard. If nothing else, the sight of military-type vehicles set up for night patrols in D.C.'s residential neighborhoods gives the appearance the district is serious about its latest assault on crime. Members of the D.C. Air and National Guard are now helping police and neighbors patrol some of the district's more drug and crime-infested streets. The goal here is to interrupt drug sales that have plagued this neighborhood. Drug sales that have in the past led to violence and murder.
We're assisting the Metropolitan Police Department in neighborhood watch, crime prevention in the D.C. metropolitan area.
The other plan of attack to take back the streets includes full-scale raids on the drug dealers, like this one on an open-air drug market in Columbia Heights that netted some 15 arrests. With 80 to 90 officers taking part on this raid alone, it's the latest, most visible sign of Chief Larry Soulsby's all-out assault on crime in the district, aimed not only at drugs, but also the gangs who deal them, and the rowdy night spots where they meet.
We are in this area to stay. We're in this area to help the community take back the community so they can walk these streets and enjoy the same freedoms everyone else does.
Well, that one drug raid netted some 85 grams of crack cocaine, street value $10,000. Daria?
What have residents been telling you out there? Are they happy about this? Looks like a war zone.
Well, you know, that's what the chief had promised early on, that he was going to have officers in the streets so you could see them, not only so that citizens would feel safer, but so that those who were using drugs and dealing drugs would see the police and move on and stop.
All right. Thanks a lot, Ron Taylor, reporting live.
Yo, we back. This shades Popalot. We back in the town on MOBB business. All my guys in D.C., what up, though? Now, during the years of covering the streets, I came across countless people whose life I feel like should be depicted on a big screen because it's just that unbelievable. And the person that we're covering today, somebody that U.S. Attorney June M. Jeffries would call a little piece of work, who 2 anonymous Washington, D.C. homicide detectives would call a neighborhood terror, and another saying he's a dangerous, dangerous kid. But what stands out even more is what Prosecutor Deborah Long Doyle, who was an assistant to one-time U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder, who just happened to be an attorney at that time, would say about Sean Branch. Quote, "People have been afraid of him for a long, long time. But being that Sean Branch's cases only go from 4 years, starting at 1988, ending in 1992, that goes to show how much a terror he allegedly was, because what's only 4 years to us seemed like a lifetime to them. So when you think about Washington, D.C. and Sean Branch, you really have to think about Montana Terrace is the neighborhood where he came up in. But more than that, you got to think about the times and events that was going on in Chocolate City. Now, within that first 3 years of the alleged 4 that they say Sean Branch was active, the Washington Police Department was only solving about 25% of the murders. Now, according to a Washington Post computer-aided analysis of the 1,286 killings that happened in Washington in between the years of 1988, 1989, and 1990, which they would go on to say was the first 3 years in a surge of killings, they would go on to determine that murder in the nation's capital would go on to go unpunished, saying detectives in the U.S. Attorney's offices were overwhelmed by the body count, saying that they only managed to win murder or manslaughter convictions in about 1 to every 4 homicide cases. Now, you add into the fact that crack and crack use was probably at its all-time high in that time period. Though a lot of people say it came on the scene in some cities in 84, 85. By 1988, that shit was not in the shadows no more. And it will begin to affect not only people in the game, but probably people outside of the game that had no thoughts about it. But they would see a nigga that really didn't have nothing 3, 2, and a year ago pull up in a Beamer. And Sean Branch happened to be coming into his 20s within that era. And something like only out of the story of Street Myth, he would go on to be 8 out of 10 charges that were either related to murder or gun possession, eventually falling to a murder sometime in 1992 that would lead him being sentenced to around 24 years, leading to the national newspaper, the Washington Post, writing an article that he would say appeared on the first page of the newspaper, and not just the Metro section where they cover a lot of the crime that go on in D.C. So the Washington Post is something like the New York Times, and they would label that article the Teflon Suspect, where they would go into detail with the crimes that he was charged with, starting in June 28, 1988, when a guy by the name of Patrick Cook was apparently stabbed in some kind of drug-related attack on the 1700 block of Montana Avenue. The jury would deadlock in that trial, and the murder charges against Sean Branch would be dismissed. The next charge will come a few years later on March 18, 1990, when police tried to connect him to a handgun that was found in the glove compartment of a car. He would later be acquitted of that gun possession charge. And it would go on from there. In June of 1990, he would be charged with shooting a guy by the name of Vincent Knight. The charges would be dropped after Vincent Knight failed to identify Sean Branch. In February of 1991, he would be caught with something that resembled a submachine gun on the 2300 block of 15th Street. Those charges would end up being dropped. In July of 1991. A guy by the name of Nathaniel Matthews would end up being shot to death on the 2300 block of 14th Street. And the murder that they would describe as a paid hit over an alleged cocaine debt. On September 11th, 1991, a guy by the name of Michael Green is fatally shot on the 200 block of T Street in Northeast. Now, that case would be specifically important because that's going to be the one that he would eventually go down on. But according to the Washington Post, that wouldn't stop the reign of terror, because on December 7th, 1991, a guy by the name of John Queen would be shot in the 2300 block of Bladensburg Road. Sean Branch would eventually be identified as a suspect in that case. Those charges would eventually get dropped. On July 20th, 1992, a woman would contact the D.C. Police Department saying that Sean Branch threatened to kill her entire family. The charges for that would eventually be dropped after the woman would go on to change her story. Just 2 days later, a guy by the name of Monty Glenn would end up being gunned down in Northeast Washington, and what police would call a drug-related contract killing. Murder charges against Sean Branch would eventually be dropped after one witness was killed and others would refuse to testify in that case. The very next month, on August 6, 1992, a witness in Monty Glenn's case, a guy by the name of Daryl Ash, would end up being ambushed. He would later go on to identify Sean Branch as one of the gunmen in that ambush, but a jury would go on to eventually acquit Sean Branch of the assault with the intent to kill charge. Now, I'm not sure if he had the same lawyer for all of those cases, but regardless of the fact, I could see why the Washington Post would go on to name him the Teflon suspect. After serving his time, he would go on to release a book titled Money, Murder, and Mayhem in August of 2018 that did pretty good and apparently set a record in the Barnes & Noble's flagship store in New York, where really they only do celebrity signings. In a situation where he explained that the store owner told him that they took a chance on him and bringing him to present his book there. They almost sold out of all of the books. I saw recently he was working with Kareem Moad on a documentary about the prison of terror, talking about Lorton. Now, if anybody in the DC or VA or Maryland area know, that's like the DMV's Rikers or Alcatraz. So y'all definitely make sure y'all look out for that. Y'all make sure y'all hit the red bell, subscribe button right under this video so y'all know when this real Trill Spill shit is dropping. Y'all get in the comment box, especially if you was in DC at that time. Y'all get in the comment box, tell them stories. If you was in Northeast, matter of fact, the whole DC, y'all get down there and let us know where y'all at. Y'all make sure y'all let me know what cities I need to go to, what stories I need to tell, what I missed, what I got wrong, what gangsters need to be next on deck. Y'all tapping with me directly. Instagram, Twitter, POP_A_LOT. And until the next time, y'all know we gonna be back with more Trill Spill shit. Shay's Popalot. Salute the almighty mob.